Hey guys, it's Joe, and in this video I'm going to be briefly explaining all of the different compressors in Logic. Now, as I'm sure you've all noticed, when you open up your normal compressor over here, you have an option of 7 different compressors all at the top. Now, they all work in slightly different ways, so therefore they suit some sounds better than they do others. So I'm just going to be briefly going into what sounds they're best used on and a brief explanation of why. I won't be going really in depth, otherwise that'll be a really long video and there'll be a lot of information in there that you won't need to know all of. So as time goes on, I'll be doing videos dedicated to each of these, going much more in depth about how to get a really good sound for the sounds that suit that compressor the most. So let's just jump in. First of all, we have the Platinum Digital. It's probably the one you're all most familiar with. This is a pretty well-rounded compressor. It works really well on things that need to stay clean and that don't really need an awful lot of attention. It's very flexible as you have the adjustable knee attack and release, so you have a lot of control. Overall, it can be used on most things. However, the results can be somewhat bland, I find. So it can work fine on drums, bass, guitar, piano, all of that. However, there may be some better options, but it will be a quick, good result. Next, we have the Studio VCA. I really like this one. I use it a lot on drums and bass. It's great on those. It works really well with parallel compression. It introduces quite a high level of harmonic saturation, which is why it works so nicely with those instruments. It's because it makes things sound really crisp and full. So as I said, I use this a lot on drums, bass, and it works really nicely on guitars as well, but it does somewhat depend on what sound you want to achieve. Next, we have the Studio FET. This is good for controlling clean vocals and clean guitar. However, it can be good for really smashing like kick, bass and snare, but it does need a much more aggressive setting. So you want to use a softer setting if you're using it on the vocals or the guitar, and it will control those quite nicely. Again, this one introduces quite a lot of harmonic saturation too, which is why it works nicely on all of those sounds. Next, we have the Classic VCA. This can add a lot of punch to bass and drums. However, it is fully automated, so you don't get to control the attack or the release, or the knee in fact. Similarly with the VCA and the FET, you can't control the knee. Now, I do believe that if you can't adjust the knee, it's automatically a hard knee, which is why it works so well with like the drums and the bass that I mentioned. However, I do personally prefer having a bit more control over that. But this can achieve a really good sound to add a lot of punch. It's worth playing around with, as well as maybe using the Studio VCA on top as well. Next, we have the Vintage VCA. This is really good for group drum compression, as it works quite evenly throughout the frequency spectrum, so you're covering a wide range of frequencies with the drum group compression. And because of that, it also works nicely with piano. Again, you're covering a large frequency spectrum there. This one has an adjustable knee, which I really like. It makes it a bit more flexible. And again, this introduces a high level of harmonic saturation. Next is the Vintage FET. Now, this is the same as the Studio FET, but the settings need to be much more aggressive to get a similar sound, but you can make them a bit more aggressive to achieve a punchier sound as well. So similarly, you can use this for like clean vocals and guitar and potentially some drums as well. And then lastly is the Vintage Opto. Now, I really like this. I use this on bass quite a lot, but it can also be used on vocals to get a good result. If there's quite a high level of lower frequencies coming into this compressor, it actually introduces more compression, which is why it's really good at controlling bass. And I think there's quite a lot of potential that can be gained from this compressor. It could also be used on things like kick, anything with quite a lot of low end that you want to tame, it's really good on. Now, as I said, I'll be doing an individual video for each of these different compressors and what they work best on, and actually going through how to use them on that. If anyone else has any suggestions about what they find works best with certain instruments and sounds, please do let me know. I'd be really interested to hear what you found out, and I'll be sure to give it a go myself. I hope you found this video useful, and if you have any questions, please leave a comment or contact me via my website. Thanks a lot for watching. Cheers.